Hello, my fellow Americans. This is Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And next up is our chief correspondent, our chief commentator, my good friend Ray Hanania.
Thanks, Bill. Former Congressman Bill Lipinski, longtime political elected official in the Chicago region, and just a phenomenal guy. I understand. Helps keep me focused. But, I'm probably the only journalist not making money from USAID. So I'm hoping I can change that. But this is Two Guys on Politics, February 6, 2025, season 4, episode 4. And we're going to be talking about President Trump's call to take over the Gaza Strip, which seems weird to me, but he did say Panama and New Zealand, so why not Gaza? And his executive orders to suspend funding to USAID and other efforts to try to suspend all federal grant and funding disbursements with the help of Elon Musk through the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, they call it. Well, let's start with Gaza first. Bill, you ready to control Gaza and make it the 51st state?
That may be necessary, but unless something it's snuck by me, I don't think that President Trump wants to take over New Zealand.
Greenland. Greenland, New Zealand. What's the difference? Okay, is there a difference between those guys? They're all ice.
That might be next week.
Well, maybe I'm seeing in the future. Maybe he's going to do that. Who knows?
I won't doubt it. Yep.
But yeah. So, what do you think of Gaza? Well, is it like Panama? Is he actually planning to do these things, or does he just kind of shoot from the hip and blurt it out?
Well, I think he shoots from the hip to distract you from other things that are going on, like some people being appointed to his cabinet and being up in the Senate to be confirmed or not. Yes. He hopes if he gets the spotlight off of them, it'll be easier to get them confirmed. I think that's one of the reasons he does it. He also believes that somehow it makes him seem bigger, stronger, more popular, no matter what he says. And with his core, it certainly does. There's no question about it. But who did he consult in the Middle East that we, the United States of America, we're going to take over Gaza? We're going to rebuild it,
Probably Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, who wants to, who oversees a investment fund, and last year said, why don't we clean out Gaza of all those quote unquote Arabs? And his words, not mine. And let's build hotels along the beach there and turn it into a luxury resort. I don't know if that's morally, it's horrendous.
Now, will that be done by the Kushner Construction Company?
Be Trump Towers all over the place. They probably make America Gaza again, MAGA. I think that's what the plan is. They're going to merge Gaza. I think he got the words. But listen, on a serious note about Trump, I think what he does is he throws grenades out there. And you and I both remember a mayor in Chicago that used to do that. She would say something crazy, and the next day she'd change her mind, and she'd go back and forth sometimes 3 times in one day, right? Jane Byrne?
Yes.
And that was a political style that forced people to step back, wonder what the heck is going on, and then respond and help her refocus on what she needed to do or what she really wanted to do. I don't know if she did that on purpose to shock people, and then knowing that she could create a controversy to come back. How they say that if you want to get to point B, you got to go all the way to point C. And that's too extreme. And then you go, okay, I'm coming back to point B. I'll compromise.
No, I think Trump definitely believes in that. There's no question about it. I think that tactic he's used for years and years, long before he was in politics, when he was in the real estate development business. Now, if I was president of the United States, if you were president of the United States, would you first of all sit down and discuss this in detail with Bibi Netanyahu? Okay.
Well, Yeah, probably not Bibi, but I would want to have a detailed plan in place. I want to look at all the options, right? I don't think he did any of that.
No, I don't think so either. But to me, I'd sit down, I'd talk to Bibi, and then I'd call whoever runs Saudi Arabia.
Abbas, right? The Saudi Arabia.
I'd like to sit down and talk to you about it. I will fly out there. Would you get Jordan here in Egypt?
Right.
We'll have sit down.
That's called diplomacy.
Right. This is what I would like to do. Okay.
Well,
instead of saying, we're gonna take it over. Did he say we were gonna buy it? I don't think he said we were gonna buy it.
No, he didn't say we're just taking it. We're just taking it. He didn't even ask the Israelis because the Israelis want it. And I'm thinking they're sitting there. Trump or Netanyahu in his meeting in Washington must have been sitting there going, "This is the best circus show I've ever seen in my life." I mean, because he was like in awe of what was. It was like wide-eyed. What the heck is going on?
I think that might be a good idea. You know, we'll go in there, we'll rebuild it. The Palestinians can come back, but you got to get people to agree with you. Where are the Palestinians going if nobody will take why we're rebuilding? Can we move them around from one section of Palestine to another section of Palestine?
It's an interesting thing, though, Bill, that we funded the bombing and destruction of all the buildings, probably 80% of all the buildings, homes, businesses, mosques, churches. There were a number of Christian churches in Gaza that were completely destroyed, Orthodox probably, schools, all businesses, all kinds of stuff. And now we're going to go in. It was our money that technically destroyed it. The Israelis used our money and weapons, but it was us. We gave them the power under Biden, and they went in and destroyed Gaza. They haven't destroyed Hamas. After all these months, 15? We're going on 16 months. They haven't beat Hamas because I don't think Hamas is a person. I think when you get so brutal, the way the Israelis have been, it changes into an anger that becomes public, societal. And I think little kids today, having seen, their parents killed or whatever, their homes destroyed, they're going to be a threat to us. So when we go back to Trump, he wants to take over Gaza. What, he's not worried that we might not become targets of violence from people that feel that they need revenge? We're going to end up sending our troops there, to do that. So the whole plan makes no sense.
There's no question in my mind, if we were to do this, we're going to have to send troops there to keep a semblance of law and order, because you're not going to move all those Palestinians out. There's going to be many of them that are there. And I said for the fourth month of this war that the Israelis were doing a terrible disservice to themselves by destroying all of these buildings, homes, apartment buildings, department stores, mosques, churches. I don't know if there's any really true ally that Israel has left other than us. I think they've alienated most of the world by the way they conducted this war.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think if Israel had been smart and they wanted to get Hamas, they would have actually gone out of their way to protect civilians instead of destroying hospitals, for example. They have huge militaries. They could have gone into the hospitals, identified the Hamas people, maybe taken them out, maybe arrested them, and then allowed the hospital to continue, serving the health needs of the people. Instead of, making those people angry. Not everybody is Hamas. Half the people in Gaza didn't support Hamas. It was the politics that forced them to live under this organization. I don't support Hamas. I never supported Hamas. But the violence between Israel and the Palestinians has empowered Hamas. And we both know that violence empowers the most extremist movements, and they grow off of that violence. So, yeah, it's a real mess. But the one thing Trump did do, though, right, and I think you'd agree, he got us all talking about it. He had the whole world talking about what to do about Gaza, and he sees where the red lines are at now with the Arab world. If the Saudis wanted to be mean and tough, Imagine what they could do to gasoline prices. I went to the pump, it was $3.40 a gallon. How would you feel if everything, eggs have gone up, everything, but not gasoline, because the Saudis have been holding the price down for us? What if it went up to $8, $10 a gallon? What would that do to our economy and our country?
We would just start pumping more oil out of the ground in the United States, because
for a while,
we really have more oil even than the Saudis, if we could be allowed to pump it out, according to everything I've read.
It's possible. You're right. I mean, but we've never done it.
No, we have not.
Because there's a fight over the little chickens that are in the lands that live on top of the oil. We would be destroying a lot of land in this country to get at that oil. Yeah, we do. And if it were your land, though, you wouldn't be too happy about it. But as long as it's not our land, we would take the oil. But that's always been the big fight over oil in the U.S., right?
I'm for us drilling as much oil as we can, so we become energy independent from any other country. I think that's very, very important. I think we should do that. Now, the Saudis, they're always one step away from making some kind of peace with the Israelis.
Right.
It seems to me like the Israelis always manage to take a step backwards.
Yes. Listen,
I wonder if they really want a peace in the Middle East.
Listen, I don't believe Netanyahu's government really wants peace in real terms of peace. What he wants is a kind of a submission and economic benefit. So the Arab countries that signed the peace agreements with Israel, they have kind of an economic deal with Israel, but they really don't have peace, because the people in those Arab countries don't like what Israel's doing. So when Israelis go to some of those Arab countries that sign these peace accords, they have to be on guard, because the government and the people are not exactly the same. I think the Saudis are the main factor that can change all this. But just going back to your point about all the oil that we have in the U.S., it would take us decades to get that process started. And imagine the economic damage it would cause to us if the Saudis were to get tough because of what we're doing with Israel. Now, I don't think they will, but that potential is always there.
Oh, here's what I've read. I've read that we only import 10% of the oil that we use in this country, okay? And we export 15%. So we're sending 5% more out than we actually need. If we were to stop importing and have the 15% originally plus the 5%, we'd be ahead of the game. Now, maybe the numbers are mixed up. Maybe they're not correct. I don't know. I don't know if you know. But the stuff I read says we could become, energy independent if we didn't have to worry so much about the environmentalists. Now, how much is the rest of the world worried about the environmentalist?
Well, listen, I think that this whole that falls into this whole thing that Trump has been doing about raising tariffs too. I mean, we want to have a balance between some of these countries. We never really have a balance. If you're a friendly country, we kind of give you an advantage over us. If you're a country we're fighting with or dislike, we tend to want to crack down on it. Trump, wants to increase tariffs on all these countries, but I think maybe he just wants to use it as leverage. At least that's what he's done in Mexico and Canada. But I think he's opened up a Pandora's box. And I don't know if we can ever close that box, because maybe Mexico or Canada might find that it's in their advantage to increase tariffs on us. Now, I do like the one, and I think you do too, about where they're shutting down. We don't want any mail from China. I think that's great. I think we should stop all the mail from China.
I think we should stop everything from China. That's my opinion. Okay?
Yes, I agree with you too. They're not our friend. I don't know why we do business with them.
No, that's right. Very true. Let them do business with Russia. I just read an article in the Wall Street Journal where the Chinese are getting shaky about their relationship with Russia, because they look at the Russian economy. It is on the brink of totally collapsing, according to Chinese sources.
Wow. Yeah. So listen, going back to Gaza, is it a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. It
Okay.
completely upends every potential hope for solution that's been discussed. It's a completely out of the box. The Israelis love it because it takes the pressure off of them and puts it on the United States and on the president of the United States. But I really think it's turning the fire up in the Middle East, and I'm not sure that's the smartest thing to do. Extremism grows as a result of this these angers and emotions, and all we're doing is throwing kerosene and gasoline on the fire, I think.
Well, let's see. In reality, he backed down to Canada. He backed out to Mexico. They've done something. The Mexicans have sent a few troops to the border. They're going to send in the due course of human events. The Canadians have simply said they're going to be tougher at the border. They haven't gone into details. So I don't really know. The only thing he accomplished, he looks like he's the big bad guy. Teddy Roosevelt, he got Mexico and Canada to back down. Doesn't look like it cost either one of those two countries much to back down.
Yeah, and we used to criticize Biden for not being tough enough, and I think the criticism of Trump is he's too tough, and I think too tough is just as bad as not being tough enough. I mean, I don't. We could talk about this maybe next week, but Ukraine isn't even a topic anymore.
Oh, it's not.
And the war with Russia, and I think that's still a major problem. But anyway, anything else you think on Gaza at all? I mean, I think that it would be great if they had a two-state solution where they could give Palestinians some rights in the West Bank and Gaza. But I don't believe Netanyahu wants that. I think there needs to be a change in Israel's government before we'll even get to a point where we might have peace.
Has there ever been a prime minister of Israel that has truly supported a two-state solution?
Yeah, Yitzhak Rabin, and an Israeli killed him.
Okay.
Assassinated him. Actually, that was an Israeli. Rabin's wife said that this was an Israeli who was a disciple of Benjamin Netanyahu, because Netanyahu does represent the extreme in Israel, and the assassin who killed Rabin, his wife and a lot of people said this was a guy who followed Netanyahu. He was part of his party, and he did it because of the rhetoric that they were spewing against Rabin. Had he lived, we might have had peace. But, violence has a bad way of stepping in and destroying the hopes of good people.
Now, we can move on from Gaza. I don't think you and I are going to solve this. The only way
we're not.
If I was president, I would send you there as my special ambassador.
I'd probably be
to run the entire Gaza area for 20 years. You didn't get the hell out.
We'd have a podcast there and everybody would be happy. But the Israelis probably arrest me and beat the heck out of me. So I'm not sure I would want to go.
Oh, no, you're being representative of the American government. They're not going to mix with the American government.
All right, listen. So the other thing, let's shift gears now and talk about Trump's executive orders. For example, he wants to suspend funding. This is part of the Department of Government Efficiency that's headed up by Elon Musk, the foreigner who runs one of the biggest social media operations in the U.S. When TikTok closes, it's going to make his Twitter or X 100 times more valuable. So there's a lot of interests that are behind the scenes that are going to benefit by a lot of these policies we hear about. But they want to, one of the things they want to suspend it. Remember, they said they were going to suspend all grants and all funding, and he backed down off of that last week, right?
Absolutely.
Because there were some programs that, the poor, or I don't know.
Like a program like Meals on Wheels,
yes,
that everybody supports in this country, that was going to get knocked out supposedly.
Right. But then the focus has shifted to the USAID, which apparently gives hundreds of millions of dollars all over the world for the interesting things, radical things, and things maybe that we need to do, but there's no accounting of that. So One of the things was the funding of journalists. They made the accusation, the Trump people and Elon Musk made the accusation that Politico, the far left-wing online media organization, was benefiting from millions of dollars from USAID that were used to purchase subscriptions for people who work in government in Washington, D.C. I wish they'd give us some money for our podcast. I'm not sure that they would do that. But that's something that I think, I didn't know they were doing that. So the only good thing about what Trump did was it raised the issue. What are we giving money for? There should be a list. We should be able to see it instead of it being secret. But I'm sure you know that some senators and powerful politicians have, even locally in their own states, certain things that they want funded. And a lot of times that money comes from organizations like USAID.
Now, I think that what he should have done, rather than hit it with a sledgehammer and then have to back off once again, I think that he should have said they're going to investigate every entity that gets money from USAID. They're going to call the entity in, and they're going to ask the entity to justify receiving this money from USAID. We will give 1 month. We will continue to fund everybody. In that month, we are going to talk to everybody that gets a penny. It will make a new determination whether or not they should receive this money. Who makes a decision on who receives this money?
I'm not quite sure, but I suspect they've already done that over the years. I think in the Congress, there's got to be some place where they review this money going out. Trump decided to make it an executive order, but I think that this wasn't done by executive order to say, oh, we're going to give money to Politico. I think this is done by the Congress. I don't know if it's the Senate or the House, but I think that they've done it. What they haven't done is given us the whole picture.
Well, both the Senate and the House have to approve. This is an appropriation. They give it appropriations to USAID, but they probably give, $500 million. But they don't decide what entity is going to get the money. They just say, here, Ray, you run USAID. Here's $500 million. Do a good job for us. And probably nobody checks who you give the money to.
Well, here's a couple, I'm trying to do research on this, and you got to look up 100 stories to find out 20% of who's getting money. It just takes a lot of work. But the Reporters Without Borders said that USAID is funding 6,200 foreign journalists, 707 non-state media outlets, 279 media NGOs in more than 30 countries. That was in 2023. And it amounted to about $270 million that was being done to support these media organizations. Now, I assume the idea was to support media voices who could kind of speak out against the oppression of where they're located, because we believe that at one point, fueling democracy in a lot of these countries was a good thing. Yes, but he's going to shut all that down.
Well, first of all, he's not going to shut it all down. His bite is much, much worse than his bite when it comes down to it. But he just doesn't go, I have no trouble investigating who's getting this money from USAID. I certainly have trouble with the way he wants to go about it. And on top of that, Musk might be a genius, but does he have the authority really, to head an organization investigating all these programs? Now, people talk, well, he wasn't elected. Fine, he wasn't elected. I understand that. But if he was appointed to an organization that Trump has just made up out of nothing, I mean, it has never been approved by Congress. Who funds that organization?
Right.
I don't know that the Congress ever budgeted any appropriations for that organization. I don't know that executive government is giving any money to it. Musk might be doing a great job, but I just don't see how he has the power, to investigate some of the things he's investigating without really heading a true U.S. government organization, which he is not.
And I think most of this USAID, if not all of it, is actually for foreign assistance. But in the case of Politico, it's hard to know what the truth is. $8 million subscriptions, so people can read what's on Politico, which is a partisan, left-wing, online media. I don't always agree with them. I find some of their stuff interesting, but, why them? Because it satisfies someone's political agenda, I think. But there are projects in 120 countries. There's like one that protects the Amazon rainforest and fighting cocaine in South America. That's funded by USAID. There's one dedicated to financing $135 million in Peru to help the coffee and cacao industry, the coca, not coca, I'm not pronouncing the word right, but the coffee industry and the chocolate industry in Peru as an alternative to, pushing people away from cocaine production, which is a big, industry in Peru. And they gave $6.5 billion in humanitarian assistance to the sub-Saharan region in North Africa. And a lot of it had to do with fighting HIV and AIDS and stuff like that. So when you think about these things, it just, morally, I think we want to do good things, but at the same time, we give away so much money and we have so many problems in this country. How do we balance that off? We have veterans that are living in the street. We got homeless people. We have people living in public homes shelters who can barely, survive. And we're not doing enough for our own people. So he raises an important topic, I think.
How much charity are we supposed to show for the entire world? How much can we afford to show? We have an enormous deficit in this country. Maybe if we cut out all this foreign aid, and I'm not saying I'm for that, but I see the value in it. But we seem to fund an awful lot of organizations that in reality do nothing really to aid or assist us. I don't mind giving you $10, Ray, if you're going to be my friend. But if I give you $10 and then you throw a brick at me, that was not a very wise investment on my part.
Right. No, I totally get it. I think inadvertently, Trump has opened the door to a discussion that needs to take place. He did it in such a drastic way, though, and it's so politicized. I don't know if we will actually have a productive discussion or debate. It may just be a partisan name calling, going back and forth, and we may never know what the truth is. And then you become rigid and you end up doing what you want to do rather than doing what needs to be done. So I think it's a good topic, but it was done in a very poor way.
That's why I wish that there was at least one house, either the House or the Senate, was in the hands of the Democrats. So there would be a real opportunity to investigate some of this stuff in a bipartisan fashion where we could really get the facts.
Well, why doesn't somebody, for example, on the Democratic side stand up and say, well, what you just said? I mean, I think that is a good thing. Maybe there's a Republican who would agree, and say, yeah, we need to put a committee together, stop don't cut funding. Let's put a committee together. Let's look at everything, where our money is going. And I would include, as you know, suspending all foreign aid, not just to Israel, but to a lot of these countries. We give away a lot of money. We pay for their needs. And I use Israel only because I'm familiar with it. The citizens in Israel, Israeli citizens, get free health care. They don't pay for their health care, partly because we give them $3.8 billion a year to cover their government costs, plus another $2 billion in grants that we give them. So, I mean, there are things that, not to make Israel a target, but there are other governments that we do the same thing for, and we should be doing it for us. And we're not doing enough. And I think that's a problem I think Trump has touched. the fears of a lot of Americans that money is being wasted all over the world. American money, hard-earned American tax dollars are being wasted, and they need to stop. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
It certainly does. I think that helped him get elected.
And then maybe they might have a process where you and I can apply for USAID funding for our podcast.
Some of the things that they fund are not in the mainstream of America, of the American way of life. That's a big problem also.
That's true. Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be a rough another week by the time we get back in front of the microphones together. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski. This is Two Guys on Politics.
And we will see you again next week. Thank you for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.